be better days. There will be better days.
Will you all take a breath with me? Oh my goodness. I feel so, I'm seeing all the comments, and I agree. I was so blessed to attend my first ever General Assembly. I can't wait for more. And yes, Sherry, that was amazing. I live in an amazing neighborhood. We all say hello to each other. We water each other's plants when needed. We let each other know when we have room in our recycling bins. So I haven't been that isolated during this quarantine. I see my neighbors every day. When I walk my dog Lufa, when they're walking by with their babies in strollers, like Ida, who's listening, or their kids in bicycles. And some of them wear masks outside, and some don't. Some don't mind if Lufa runs up to them and greets them, and some of them would rather she didn't. Some stand further away on the street than others do, and some don't come out onto the street at all. But I've had conversations, both spoken and unspoken, with every one of my neighbors. While preparing for this sermon, I've had more spoken conversations with them than I might have otherwise. My neighbor Katie's children go to my other neighbor Emily's house every week, and Katie says that her weekly conversations with Emily, where have you gone this week? Who have you been with? How close were you? They kind of remind her of conversations she's used to having with people she was starting to date. And I replied to her that my habit of carrying a mask in my pocket, whether I need it or not, reminds me of a lesson I learned in 8th grade health class. Now, today's reading, we are called to pay attention, serves me well when I'm listening to my neighbors, not just what they say, but how they stand and how they move when I'm near them. It serves me well at Shaw's when I do that ballet dance that I think some of you have done in the cereal aisle where you're trying to get around someone who's on the other side of the aisle. And this past Mother's Day, Lucinda and I drove to Greenfield, Mass. to visit both of our mothers. We went to Lucinda's mother's first and then mine. We put our masks on and visited each of our mothers, but by the end of both visits, each of them had touched us without asking, and despite our discomfort. Now, both of our mothers live alone. They didn't touch us because they're selfish. They touched us because they miss us, and because they love us. Still, both interactions gave me pause and reminded me of the lessons I had learned about bodily autonomy from working at rape crisis centers for so many years. And I'm not the only one. A recent Boston Globe article was entitled Social Distancing Calls for New Methods of Consent. Now let me be clear. I am not saying that our mothers touching us is anything like sexual violence. Comparisons like that do a disservice to survivors of sexual violence. And statistically speaking, there are survivors in this Zoom room right now. What I am saying is this: the incredible feminist women who have led the sexual violence prevention movement have done a great deal of work, and we can let her guide us through social distancing. Because not everyone is as nice as our moms, as my neighbors. We all know people who refuse to wear masks. Many of my friends have been mocked or shamed for exercising caution. One friend stepped out of the path when an unmasked man approached. As he passed, he yelled at her, "If you're so scared, why don't you stay home?" And across the country, people are demonstrating at state houses, demanding unmasked admission to stores, shoving and spitting on employees who are being paid minimum wage to enforce the no mask rule. They are yelling right into nurses' masked faces. Jacqueline Friedman, author of the book Believe Me, How Trusting Women Can Change the World, puts it like this. Just like men who see demands that they stop sexually harassing and abusing women as some kind of PC infringement on their freedom, mask refusers are prioritizing their own preference over the safety of others. Friedman continues, my need for you to not seriously harm me is more important than your desire to not be uncomfortable or to increase your own fun or make a statement. At least in any kind of functioning society, it is. Why then do some people refuse to wear a mask? Why do people refuse to honor social distancing guidelines? Some people would say they're selfish. Some would say scared, maybe brainwashed. From the mask refuser perspective, they might say it's their individual right not to wear a mask. They might say that people should decide about mask wearing, not the government. They might say that forcing them to wear a mask infringes on their freedom. We Unitarian Universalists talk about the concept of freedom in our fourth principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. But some hold up this principle emphasizing the free, while others emphasize the responsible. As the saying goes, your freedom to swing your fist stops at my face, and your freedom to not wear a mask stops at your responsibility to the rest of us. Because I don't wear a mask for myself. I wear a mask for my wife Lucinda, who has multiple sclerosis and is immunocompromised. I wear a mask for the babies and toddlers in my neighborhood. I wear a mask for my mother, who's just turned 80 and is listening upstairs. By the way, after some conversations, Mom has become very respectful about boundaries and has taken the initiative to set these boundaries herself. Hi, Mom. Who do you wear a mask for? Please type in the text chat who you wear a mask for. I went on Twitter about a month ago trying to start a trend with the hashtag who do you wear a mask for, but it hasn't gone viral yet. Who do you wear a mask for? And Lindsay wears for her husband, Lori for her clients at the clinic, Kate for everyone else, Andy for my kids, Tom for my family, Krishna for everyone, Heidi for the at-risk community. Kim Steele says I wear a mask for everyone else since I'm required to go into work almost every day, where I must use shared equipment. Peggy Cardone wears masks for our friends, Elaine Thomas for everyone. The Phillips family wears masks for the social norm of having a decent society. Kathleen wears it for my kids and for people I don't even know. Ruth says I wear a mask for medical professionals on the front lines. Dan Murphy says it's a deal. You wear one for me, I'll wear one for you. Jason says he wears one for his son, for his mother, for his husband, and for all those I don't know. Paul Intricasso wears one for my daughter Allie, who is also immunocompromised. Ann and JD says they wear them for their friends in hospice and another one with cancer at age 16, and for everyone. Stan St. Ange also wears it for everyone. Lori Goodman says that Roy wears one for the folks I bring meals to for Meals on Wheels. And Venture Flutta says she wears them for my mom and all I come in contact with out of care. So what can the feminist rape prevention movement teach us about respect and bodily autonomy when it comes to social distancing? Well, here are 7 lessons the movement has taught me that might be useful to others. Lesson 1 comes from a post shared by our guest speaker, Atherton-Zeman, who you'll meet in a minute. If you don't want to wear a mask around your friend, ask them if they want you to wear one. Don't assume just because you're 99% sure they don't want you to, just because they've never worn a mask before and never asked you to. Feminist author Jennifer Posner adds, think of your face as your unclothed body. There's nothing wrong with your face, just like there's nothing wrong with your naked body. But if we take our clothes off in a grocery store or restaurant or workplace, that is considered assault. And now, she says, since our breath can literally kill people, but most likely not if we wear masks, we cover our faces with masks, so we are not assaulting others with our potentially deadly breath. Lesson 2, if I move away a bit, or I seem uncomfortable with you when you're that close, please back off. Don't yell at me to go home if I'm so scared. And if I put my mask on, that's a signal you should put on yours. Again, from Atherton-Zeman, if I correct you, just say thanks. Lesson 3, mask refusers are not necessarily two-dimensional evil people lurking in the shadows to yell at us with a knife. Some of them are people we love, people we respect, people we want to continue having relationships with. Lesson 4 is you don't get to tell me that not wearing a mask or coming close or touching me is not harmful to me. I get to determine that, not you. Lesson 5 is from noted UU minister Lisa Bobe-Camper. If I consent to you coming closer than 6 feet or not wearing a mask, I can withdraw that consent at any time. Then it's your responsibility to honor that. Lesson 6, if you are the mask refuser, if you're the one that doesn't want to stay 6 feet away, then you have the primary responsibility for honoring my boundaries. It's not on me to enforce my boundaries. It's up to you and up to any bystanders who are our friends to enforce it. And finally, lesson 7 from Black Lives Matter co-founder Alicia Garza. Do not let our government use this time as an opportunity to continue stripping rights away from our community. And she ends by saying, protect our vote. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce Atherton-Zeman, an advocate from Bridges. I'm very excited that she's here. She's agreed to say a few words, and some of you have already met her if you've attended the social justice meeting right before COVID. I asked her, and she said that yes, if I could let you all know the interaction that she and I had this past week, and when I asked her to come here and be a guest speaker. She said yes. And then she said, please don't only quote white feminists. And I really appreciate that because at that point I had, yes, and Ann Stillwater is clapping. At that point, I'm embarrassed to say I had only quoted white feminists in my 7 lessons. So thank you, Famina, for prompting me to do the work that I should have done in the beginning. And please, if you could draw your attention to our guest speaker, Atherton-Zeman.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, great. Hi, everyone. So I have met a few of you. My name is Atherton-Zeman, as Ben introduced me. I work at Bridges in Nashua, and Bridges is the local domestic and sexual violence crisis center. I am the cultural outreach advocate. So I have the great, amazing job of doing, unfortunately with COVID, I haven't been able to do a lot, but doing the work of outreaching to underserved populations, particularly immigrants, refugees, people of color, the LGBTQ community, folks that, don't feel represented or don't feel like they have a voice. I collaborate with different stakeholders and community organizations right now with COVID, it's been a little difficult, obviously, as Ben has mentioned, having boundaries and not meeting people in person, but trying to do the best I can, not being near people, right? So I'll talk a little bit about the services that we have. So everything that we do at Bridges is free and confidential for all the clients that we speak to. We help survivors at the court, for example, if they're interested in filing a restraining order, if they're going through a divorce. We go and help them kind of like with emotional support and to help them file these kind of paperworks. We help survivors at the police station, for example, if they want to make a report. We help survivors with crisis counseling. They can come to us during our office hours, which I will mention in the chat. And as well as we have a 24-hour support line, which is also free and literally provided 24 hours a day. If you call that number, someone will be there to talk to you. We have a lot of volunteers that also work on that support line, so I really would like to honor those volunteers. We do a lot of education and, again, outreach out in the community. We have an education coordinator that I work with closely that does a lot of that kind of work. We house survivors who are fleeing from domestic violence. We do have a shelter, and then once the shelter is full, we do provide temporary shelter in the nearby hotels. And then we also have an office in Milford as well as Nashua. So the Nashua office is still currently at 33 East Pearl Street. We are moving in the fall to a bigger, nicer location. And then Milford is near the Oval. And if anyone has questions, definitely I'll add my email in the chat as well, and then I'll provide our phone numbers for our office and for the 24-hour support line. And feel free to email me, call the office, call the support line. You don't need to be a survivor to access our services. You could be a family member or a friend who is concerned for a loved one. And yeah, I don't know if you'd like me to say anything else, Ben, but just wanted to talk a little bit about myself and our organization.
Thank you, Famina. No, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate your being here. Like I said, it's because of statistics. There are survivors in this room, so you don't have to be a survivor, like she said, but if you are, and maybe you've never talked to anyone, maybe like so many survivors, you blame yourself, maybe today's the day, because you're not alone. So let us remember our UU fourth principle, free and responsible. Your freedom to swing your fist stops at my face. Your freedom to not wear a mask stops at your responsibility to the rest of us. And let us also remember our UU first principle, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence. If you are in covenant with me, and you know that Lucinda has MS, you risk her exposure by not wearing a mask. You are still free to do that. But is it responsible? And finally, let us remember the wisdom of the feminist movement to end sexual violence. The wisdom of women like Famina, like Alicia Garza, like Jacqueline Friedman, like Jennifer Posner. UU Minister Antonia Bell Delgado, speaking about our denomination's behavior during the pandemic, says this: seeing us all practice Unitarian Universalism as it could be just gave me so much hope, she says. The connection really is more spiritual than it is physical. This is Unitarian Universalism in its best form. This is what it's about. She continues, I cannot wait to see how we continue to live into that. When we look out across all expanse and at all the ways we practice Unitarian Universalism, everyone really does have inherent worth and dignity. Everyone really is connected. Feminist writer April Crean says, I'm hoping this social distancing will create a generation of people, and especially men, who are more aware of boundaries and more understanding of the fear some survivors live through every day when strangers get too close. Who do you wear a mask for? Amen, and blessed be.